Well, hello, that's me again. Today is September 23rd, 2023, and this is weekend, guys, and I decided to give you some food for thought for the weekend, if somebody have some idea that they, derive the pleasure from my talks, so here it is. We will start with the hottest of the hottest issues of this. Now, this is the historic building of the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet, which was hit by allegedly a storm shadow by Britain, which they are very proud of. But first, you can go back in time and take a look at my videos about the leakers. And secondly, they made a hole, one missile hit it. But what is I'm trying to constantly explain to people is the fact that, as the same as the issue of the allegedly the one of the Russian diesel submarines, Rostov-on-Don, allegedly being destroyed, which of course the whole photos have been photoshopped, and I have a very extensive writing on this matter, including all those so-called experts like whatever, Sub-Brief or whatever the guy, and H.I. Sutton, who's not really an expert in Russian Navy, let alone the submarine forces, unlike my classmates who happened to command number of the submarines in their lives. So that was debunked. But now, yes, there was one leaker, what it is, but that's how it's called, the thing which goes through your air defense. And the main issue here is that except for the maintenance crew and the guards crew, which guards the historic building, there is not a single operational officer is or was in this building, because all the command and control, the whole C4, command control communications and computers, is conducted in the wartime, and Russia is at war. I mean, it's special military operation, but it is war, and it's conducted from what is called ZKP, Запасной командный пунct, which is the reserve command post, and it's usually spread around, it's underground, it's very difficult to identify, and it's especially so with the Russian air defense, difficult to attack. So, and this is what happened. It's usually, as usual, for the pretty much most of the Western NATO countries, it's all about PR. And yeah, they got the PR action going, but command and control of Black Sea Fleet hasn't been interrupted in any way. It is obviously a very sad occasion that one of the people who have been in this building, probably maintenance or dispatchers, I'm just sitting pretty much in the empty building, so he got missing. We should assume that he is dead, although who knows, maybe he will be found in some rubble inside the building. So this is it about that issue. But, well, we can go further, and if this hasn't been enough, we suddenly have the issue of this. And and that is important not in terms of what you see here, which is the Russian military destroyed the Leopard with the crew from the Bundeswehr in the special military operations zone. And here's one of the recon group which stopped, well, those the best tanks in the world, I'm being facetious here, that when we stop their next meat assault, yeah, that's how Russians call those meat assaults, by armed forces of Ukraine or whatever is left on them, and seal them, well, that means they pturt them, which is destroy them with the help of ATGM, Cornet, obviously. Leopard, when they destroyed this Leopard, we moved to the burned equipment in the hope of taking the Tong. The Tong in Russian means the prisoner of war. And they found that the tank driver was seriously wounded, and the rest died. The mechanic, when he woke up or came around and saw us, began to shout, nuked. Oh my God, Russians know this really well. Every single Russian knows what Hände hoch and nuked is in German. Do not shoot. So there you go. This is very important. This is not important in terms of Germany. We know that Germany lives its, SS and Wehrmacht moment. They're basically German elites, a large portion of them are psychopath with their connection to their basically Nazi past, and it was only the matter of time before Russians And here comes this point which I'm trying to make. Before Russians started to talk that finally they get those guys from NATO countries. Let me explain it to you. Before that, Russians also were taking prisoners, including American and British and all kinds of other POWs. But this was kind of hushed up in order not to kind of, make things worse than they are. Now it shows for the first time, and we're not talking about Polish mercenaries, which have been being killed and taken prisoners of war wholesale. We're talking about that actually, for the first time, Russia reports taken prisoner and actually talking about cadre NATO army, and not just NATO army, but the core NATO nation in Europe. And guess what? Bang, here they are. They are Germans, they are from Bundeswehr, and they are cadre people there. These are not mercenaries. So, and Russia properly, duly reports this. Well, guess what? This is, in some sense, could be part of the reaction to this. And here we're going to be talking, I spoke about it many times, I'll have to talk about this again. But before I go, I need to show you the butcher's bill, which is accumulation for September. So at September we have almost 15,000 killed by armed forces of Ukraine. We have yet another tanks destroyed, and things continue like this with this butcher's bill, and it will continue as long as it takes. And here we come to the most important thing. You probably already heard about this. So here we have this. Recall immediately that Frau Wonderland, who is von der Leyen, is actually German. We don't know how much relation she has with the people from there who basically are responsible for killing 27 million Soviet people. But look at this. Soon they will have us believing Russia nuked Hiroshima. Yesterday at the Atlantic Council Awards, EU von der Leyen, without mentioning US did it, talked about how the atomic bomb razed Hiroshima to the ground. She then said Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons once again. Now, here is how Russian major news outlet reported it. And here we have this news by RIA News, which is machine translated from their website. And of course, they talk about that the head of European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, lied, blaming Russia for the tragedy of Hiroshima. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zahara said in her Telegram channel. While speaking to the Atlantic Council, they have awards evidently, they have their Oscars there. And I will be talking about Atlantic Council and the bunch of the who basically congregate there. But look at this. Zahara also quoted von der Leyen as saying, many of your relatives died when the atomic bomb razed Hiroshima to the ground. You grew up with the stories of survivors and wanted us to hit the same stories. Look into the past and learn something about the future. Russia threatens to use nuclear weapons again. It is disgusting, it is dangerous, and it is unforgivable under the shadow of Hiroshima. So this is your big honcho of Europe. She's German. And now Russians, as it turned out, used the nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and evidently Russians want to use them again. So when you say that they are insane, no, many of them are. They are psychopaths, some of them are genocidal maniacs, but you have to understand that this is how the history will be written for the West. You will have the whole generation brainwashed. They have been already brainwashed, believing that United States alone with those, sideshow, those Ruskies, and others, who helped them to defeat Nazi military machine. And now you know that actually Russians used nuclear weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And guess what? Many and Japanese school children, they really think so. And this is how this is coming into the high schools and history, basically departments of the American universities, because I already on record practically everything what is taught in terms of the humanities in the combined West today is trash. it's not scholarship, it's garbage, basically. So the people who teach them, those are, those so-called Western intellectuals. But pay attention to the fact that von der Leyen goes in the front of the very influential Atlantic Council, and she says this, and those people sit there and listen to it, and they take it in. Nobody raised the voice, nobody tried to contradict her, because it really fits their agenda. They're gonna lie. So, and when you look at this further, and we're gonna go into the Atlantic Council, what it is. Here's the Atlantic Council recap. That's the Transatlantic Forum on Geoeconomics they held. They talk a lot about Zelensky. They talk about this war. And let me show you what is the main core idea of the Atlantic Council is. Main core idea of Atlantic Council is, as you can see underlined in red, is that it's non-partisan organization that galvanizes U.S. leadership and engagement in the world in partnership with allies and partners to shape solutions to global changes. So it's a new speak, it's Orwellian BS. But it's about the United States and providing actually the stranglehold on the European vassals. They are vassals. There's nothing to talk about anymore with them. And von der Leyen is just one of those examples. Look at which is one of the point of the agenda is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when you look at the leadership of this Atlantic Board of Directors, when you take a look at this, you will not find single competent person out there like John Rogers, the chairman. The guy is some Goldman Sachs creature. Frederick Kemp, let's take a look who Frederick Kemp is. Look at his CV. Oh my God. And this is the guy who sits on the board of organization which allegedly galvanizes whatever they galvanize there. And guess what? Kemp is a graduate of the University of Utah and has a master's degree from Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism. You can stop here because anything in journalism is not an education. So basically you have the guy who is illiterate, who only knows how to write. Basically it's any kind of degree in journalism is glorified English or glorified language of your country where you go for journalism school. And these are the people who actually command this whole thing. You can also get into this guy, so, and this is a Reaganoid creature, and then the creature which have been in Bush Senior, Bush Junior org, and as you can see yourself, he was assistant to national security. Again, he is a lawyer, and guess what? Who he was working under? Condoleezza Rice, Robert Gates. He is the guy who actually also worked for all kind of the, very strange creatures, including Wolfowitz. So, as you might expect, these are the people who run that think tank, and they are not the only ones. I am on the record, and I can't prove it. It's actually, there's nothing to prove. You get any basically demagogue or ideologue from the combined West, and they pass there for intellectuals. There's nothing to talk to them. I mean, they are ignorant people. They are not very bright. Many of them are psychopaths. And just to show you what kind of people are there, I just showed you something with the Atlantic Council. It is a collection of the basically swamp creatures who promote who knows what, whatever the agenda is. If they and again, it's just the part of this whole what is called cultural milieu of the so-called intellectuals. And take a look at this intellectual. Oh, this guy. And suddenly Le Figaro writes that, oh my God, the Europe is basically like a strainer. It's all in holes. And guess who said about the new necessity for the new borders? Mr. Jacques Attali. Oh my gosh. Mr. Jacques Attali, who is the what is called mondialist, let's be French here, which is a globalist, and with the pretense for intellect, and he is definitely a prolific writer. He wrote so much trash, my God. So, and guess what? Now this guy who is old and he passes in in France for intellectual. He talks about the new frontiers or new borders, necessity to actually enforce border control. Well, guess what? The guy is the guy who worked also as the advisor to Mr. Sarkozy, and then of course he is the guy who sought out and discovered, quote unquote, Mr. Macron. So that tells you everything you need to know about this shyster from the intellect. They never produce anything worthy of the serious, really intellectual labor. They never produce anything which panned out, because they do not understand anything. When you look at them, they have all those of degrees in administration, journalism, political science, and those people have no clue. And then that's why I'm constantly on record when I say that actually special military operation is a perfect litmus test. It exposed this elite, it exposed this managerial class on the top level as a complete loonies. And if you doubt me, well, let's go to our good old American news and to just demonstrate to you what is happening in this respect is just to show you. It's apart from Mr. Menendez, which have been naturally charged second times in 10 years, to different occasions, to different cases for the bribery and peddling his, position and influence for foreign powers. But look at this. We have, of course, as I already spoke about the issue of, basically the imbeciles, just to demonstrate to you. That's the only thing they know. Here's the New York Post. I'm so grateful that I stumbled upon it because I love Pink Floyd. I love Roger Waters, and I know Roger Waters, while not agreeing with him on many points of his politics, I agree with him that on many respects that he is a classic left, classic European left of the kind of, the first or second issue before it completely turned into the circus and panopticon. And he is a truly anti-war guy, and he is the guy, and the whole album, The Wall, is actually, it's in its essence, it's anti-war, anti-violence, anti-fascist album. And look at this, New York Post, this tabloid from New York. There is now any other types that everything practically in New York is about being a crap hole, including its so-called self-proclaimed intellectual class. And look at this, New York Post, which is again tabloid and garbage, trash newspaper, as all of them are, including New York Times. And they complain that Roger Waters dresses up as Nazi officer, desecrating the memory of Anne Frank. They are talking about Roger, fantastic show. I've been at it, on it in Tacoma Dome early this year. It's outstanding show. And he dresses there. It's basically he isn't the character of the guy from The Wall. But of course, those creeps from New York Post, they're so uncultured. They're so stupid that they do not even understand. They cannot separate where the act is, the artistic act, and where the reality is. So luckily for us, I mean, when you read actually those imbeciles who obviously never have been touched by what is best in the Western culture, we have the hundreds of people writing that they are imbeciles. They tell them that directly, and show them and tell them that this was the act for 40 years now, and it's one of the most outstanding albums, including being anti-war albums in the history of music, not just pop music. And of course, how it's difficult to explain for some shysters who live from on the Holocaust tragedy and live off it, that Mr. Roger Waters, he lost his grandfather in World War I, and he lost his father in World War II fighting Nazis. But you cannot explain this to the so-called New York intellectuals. They are imbeciles. And if that hasn't been enough, now we have, look at this. Very interesting. These things come out practically simultaneously. And here we have this guy, Mr. British Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden. There are no normal people who work in British government anymore, but look what he says. He says that the UK is ready to support Ukraine in the confrontation with Russia for years, if necessary. The statement was made on Friday by at the rostrum of the 78th session of UN General Assembly in New York by British Deputy Prime Minister Oliver Dowden. The question, of course, which stands here is and how they want to support it when, in terms of real economy, Great Britain, compared to Russia, is a pipsqueak. It's just almost doesn't register in terms of real economy. When you look at the actual economic data on Russia, just outproduces United Kingdom, with the exception of the excellent Rolls-Royce engines and some remnants of some economy in Great Britain. It's basically primarily service economy. It's media, some finances in London. So what they're gonna produce more Storm Shadows? Good luck with that. I mean, they will continue to produce them. So what? Russia will produce air defense missiles, and the only reason they can do that, rather they think they can do, because they cannot, is the fact that actually they do it hiding behind the proxies. It's a classic British thing. Indirect strategies. They thought that they fought great wars. They didn't. But it is what it is. This is the nature of the British. What is Pink Floyd, sang about in the dark side of the moon, and it was, I hoped it would stay this way when they sang in the quiet desperation is the English way. Evidently, no, not anymore. It's not quiet desperation, it's sanctimonious, it's, very aggressive and very PR, because they need to convince themselves, Russians laugh at them actually, but they need to convince themselves that they're still great. They are not, sadly. And I love British culture, make no mistake, English culture, I love English language, but it is what it is. And then when we hear that, suddenly we have one of the major publications in Britain speaking about this, and this was yesterday. United Kingdom has held secret talks with Russia during the Ukraine war. And look what they say. The meetings have been arranged to discuss security matters both for UK and internationally. United Kingdom still operating as the lapdog of the United States, with talks thought to cover grain shortages and nuclear safety. At no point has the UK sought to enter peace talks around finding a diplomatic end to the conflict. A senior British diplomat involved in some of the discussions told the publication. Let me tell you, actually, this was about the finding a diplomatic end to the conflict, and a traditionally British lie, and British diplomat obviously lies, and United Kingdom was acting on the behalf of the United States, which now is desperate to find the ramp off, and trying to find the ramp off, they obviously will send ATACMS. I told you from the get-go they will be sending them, and it doesn't matter because it's just pretty operational tactical ballistic missile, and it is standard target for Russian air defense. They will try to hit Sevastopol again. They will try to hit as many civilians as they can. And Mr. Biden, who is not in charge of the United States, and nobody is actually, it's basically the undercover, the snake pit, and they try to kill each other there nowadays in Washington, D.C. So when you look at this, you understand that they try to find the ramp off. But if that was enough, and if you didn't see the stupidity of British elites, here's the major outlet. It's globalist, and it's, as you might expect, incompetent, and it exists only for pushing agenda and propaganda. All of them are, then there are no real journalists there. So they talk about that Ukraine faces a long war and change of course is needed. And look what they write. The counteroffensive that began in June was based on the hope, and let's stop here. Normal people do not hope. Normal people plan. But we know that neither Pentagon nor London, let alone London, which doesn't know what real army is, what real warfare, modern warfare is, they do not know how to plan. They do not know how to plan operationally, let alone strategically. And yes, their hopes have been dashed. I already showed you the butcher's bill for today, aggregate butcher's bill. And so when you look at this is when you begin to understand they are going completely nuts. I mean, yeah, next thing you know, they will, I don't know, Russia will be accused of the Great Flood or maybe killing Jesus Christ. Who knows? I mean, it very well could be. And if you have these idiots at Atlantic Council who obviously say they're not doing any kind of research, they don't need any kind of research. They are basically a bunch of the humanities dumbed down, I mean, soft degree shysters who worked under all kinds of the administrations and the only skill they have is how to navigate the bureaucratic, corridors of power in DC and London. You're not going to get anything from them. And you have to constantly look at the actions, not the intentions. And intentions are simple. They are desperate. They wanted Russia to disintegrate and be, split eventually in several, entities and have the access to those, resources. They miscalculate. It's not even miscalculated. They didn't know the subject at all. They don't understand military, they don't understand warfare, they don't understand industry, and they don't understand pretty much anything. And yes, these are the people like Mr. Menendez and his wife. Oh my gosh. And it's like, next thing you will tell me that politicians do not lie. No way. I always thought that politicians say truth. No, they lie. All of them lie. I mean, there is no other people. There is no other entity, so to speak, in the modern combined West governmental structures, and especially on the top political level, who are not shysters, who are not some kind of psychopath, and who knows, pedophiles. Then, and when you look at this, how do you even talk to those people? Obviously, some people, and there are some factions who still want to live in Washington, D.C. and in London, who understand the nature of the, for example, Russian nuclear, even not nuclear, even conventional response. Russia can turn London in the parking lot if need be, I mean, really fast. But the point is that they want to live, but they struggle. They want to get some kind of the handle on this whole situation. They will not be able. And so that is why I always tell you, buckle up. We're living quickening. And when you look at the realities of American economic and political developments, well, probably Menendez is the guy who will be thrown under the bus to prevent the situation with the possibility of charging Biden family with what we all know. We don't need to basically beat around the bush about what is happening. So Menendez might be the kind of this feign, this thing to distract attention, and possible. But when if you want to make any conclusions from what I told you today, and I didn't provide much analysis on this issue, I just basically commented on that. It's, as you can see yourself, there are some desperate, almost knee-jerk reactions right now. And yeah, Russians are already kind of rubbing their hands. Please get those leopards to the front line. Russians would love nothing more than parade yet another Wunderwaffe from the West as being just basically not ready for any serious war. And this is what I wanted to tell you today for the weekend, to have kind of, some ideas about what is happening in the world. And as always, guys, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon and buy me a coffee or 12. So, and I would really appreciate this. And what can I say? Have a nice weekend, guys. Relax. Good luck with that. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.